Hello, dear listener, and welcome to another episode of the So Bet Punks podcast. This is number 92 of the podcast in which we talk about spirituality, meaning, transcendence, awe, and spirituality. With a small S. I think that S is getting bigger.
Yeah, week on week.
Week upon week. And I am Dave.
And I am Siobhan. And that was a wonderful introduction. Never change. Can we just snapshot that and have that every week?
Yeah, if you
it's
want.
It's a beautiful thing.
I can't remember what I did.
It all wrong. But it was lovely. It was a lovely thing.
Well, if you weren't tuning into this podcast in order to hear two people do things wrong, then you've come to the wrong place, ironically.
We're very good at doing things wrong.
We certainly are. And, of course, you join us on an auspicious occasion.
Of course.
Because tomorrow we are heading off to Bloodstock 2025.
Yay.
Tell us about Bloodstock, Siobhan.
It is a heavy metal festival up in the north of here, but kind of middle of England, somewhere near Derbyshire.
Very north.
Very north of here, but
come on,
pretty much near Birmingham, smack in the middle of the UK. We went to Wacken a few years ago, which is a metal festival over in Germany.
We did a podcast episode
about it.
We did a podcast about
it.
You may have heard it.
And it was quite an experience for loads of different reasons. But we thought...
Mostly negative.
Most crazy, stupid ones. But the idea of being at just an all-metal festival... Prior to that, I don't think we really... Well, you listened to metal, but we weren't really exclusively digging the metal hole until Wacken, where we were like, let's find out what all these bands are, and had a really nice time doing it. So we thought, well, Wacken's a long way to go and very expensive. Tickets sell out very quickly. It's all various levels of stress we just don't need. But there's metal festivals in the UK. Why don't we go? Downloads become something weird and it's massive. And then
I think Busted headlined one of the stages of Download this year, and or maybe McFly. It was one of those, and maybe both have done it.
Isn't there a McBusted now?
Maybe they both did it then.
It could be anything, but needless to say, Download is a bit of a mixture of things. Good. I mean, it's probably more, I don't know,
bad,
pop, but it is terrible, and it's massive, and I don't think we want to go to anything so big. So anyway, Bloodstock is a metal festival that happens the week after Wacken. So often a lot of the headliners or the main bands that go to Wacken will then make their way over here. So we feel like we're not really missing out on not going to Wacken. We get to be in our country. Oh, that sounds it. In our country. That's not how I mean it at all. We just don't have to go as far, which is
making
nice.
Metal great again.
That's terrible, isn't it? And it looks like it's going to be nice weather. We're going to go camping.
Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Who are you looking forward to the most of all of these various heavy metal bands?
Well, two of the three headliners are the big draws.
Bad news. One of the three headliners.
Well,
Siobhan hates you.
I don't hate them, but I just don't care for them. So Trivium are not on the list. They're the first night headliner. But second night headliner is Machine Head, and that's going to be very fun and very good, and I'm very excited about that. And the last night headliner is Gojira, which I think most modern people probably are aware of.
Of which we assume, if you're listening to this, you are one.
You may be one. If you are, then why are you still listening to this? But anyway, I had not ever really listened to Gojira, and I know that when I mentioned them to you, you'd be like, oh god, they're a bit techie. They're one of them techie metal bands. You don't really want to hear them. But then
I don't think I would have said you don't want to hear them.
Well, I think you passed your opinion that made me think, oh, maybe I don't want to hear them. Which I should.
I am very opinionated against techie things.
Yeah, and you're in this case incredibly wrong.
Take that on the chin.
Yeah. So anyway, forced to listen to them because they're the headliners. Thought better go listen to them, and incredible, absolutely incredible. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them.
I don't know if I'd describe them as incredible.
I think they're incredible.
I think
two of those albums
good.
Are incredible.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. And Ministry, because need some industrial in our lives, and they made it up. Although he might be mad now, so never mind.
Oh, he's been mad since day one, but I don't think he can't have a lot of years left. He's really done some bad things to himself.
Yeah.
So
Al Jorgensen, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, you can say it that way. I say Jorgensen, you say Jorgensen.
I don't know. Listen back, David. Listen back.
Yeah, right.
But yes, Ministry will be very good, and Nail Bomb. Very interested in them. Don't know them as well as you, I imagine. I don't know them at all, actually, but all their component parts sound brilliant.
Mm-hmm. I actually don't know Nail Bomb as well as you expect. I
they don't have a lot.
Well, they know, but so therefore you can get to know it quite well.
Yeah, true. Probably should have done that.
I have that. They only have one album and then a live album. I've got the live album; it's really good. But fundamentally, I just like Sepultura and I like Fudge Tunnel, and that's who they are.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Mastodon will be very good. I am naming everyone, so sorry, I will come to you, but Mastodon will be very good too. I'll stop naming people. Anyone left that you want to mention?
Oh, there's lots more.
I know, there's plenty of bands.
Well, I am looking forward to a band who we were just listening to called High Parasite very much. They are the singer from My Dying Bride, I think so. Doing something a bit more poppy, a bit more synthy, a bit more gothy.
Yeah.
And I think the album is fantastic. I am looking forward to seeing 3 Inches of Blood.
Ooh, yeah.
Reliving my noughties. I don't know. I didn't really have a noughties. I mean, I had a noughties, but I was going to pretend to be someone I wasn't then, really. Reliving the album that I listened to a bit when I was in my early 20s.
Oh, wow. What a life.
And yeah, Nail Bomb definitely, Ministry definitely, Machine Head very much.
Oh,
probably Machine Head more than anything.
Yeah.
I think Machine Head will probably be the only band that will make me stay up beyond 10 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm honest, having looked at the Clash Finder. The beautiful thing about this festival is it starts at 10:30 in the morning, which is about when I'm coming into my own.
And some of the really good, like, black metal and all that sort of atmospheric-y stuff. Sorry, I went very Norfolk then. That's all on at like 10:30, so it's going to be a beautiful way to wake up. Just fully grown men just screeching.
Yeah,
it's going to be lovely.
Yeah, and of course Lacuna Coil, who are a dreamy.
I wonder why I didn't mention them.
A dreamy, pappy Italian symphonic fun band.
Yeah.
I think that's how they describe
Dual
themselves.
vocals. The woman is like a proper. You can tell she's classically trained of some
kind.
I
think she sounds more like a pop singer than a classically trained singer.
Yeah, but she's got some range. And then her little mate.
Yeah, I don't know if they're a couple or not.
Oh, I hope not.
I think they might be, or they might have been, or something. I'm not sure, but
the Fleetwood Mac of the ages.
Yeah, well, no, they all seem to get on well. I did get a book about them actually when I started getting into them, just because it turned out there was a book, and I work in a bookshop and have a very generous staff discount. So,
Is this you're just saying this to disguise your true Lacuna
Well, no, I've never opened the book.
Fandom. Oh,
so
that seems a bit.
So I'm sure that I flicked through it very briefly, but then it just went on the shelf. So I'm sure that would have told me all of the goss.
Take it up on the drive, David.
Well, maybe I will. There you go, a little reading material for Bloodstock.
Beautiful stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun, and I'm sure we'll have all kinds of spiritual extravaganzas there.
We'll tell you about it on the next episode.
I'm sure.
I can't imagine it will be as spiritually fulfilling as Manowar. But and if you're interested in hearing us talk about Manowar in spiritual terms, as I'm sure you are, and you haven't, then go back and listen to the last episode.
Yeah, exactly.
In which we wax lyrical about the Four Metal Kings
and Hare Krishna and William Blake. If you haven't listened to it, believe me, all those things do work. Don't know why.
They do.
They do.
So we start this podcast every episode by saying one thing in which we have both done, which has filled our lives with a sense of transcendence and awe and spirituality with a small s and meaning. And so I would like to ask you, Siobhan, to tell me what you've done.
I can't say that I have done this, but
all right.
No. I think it will make sense.
Well, you've fallen at the first hurdle.
Yeah, I know. So I don't think that I've done anything particularly different, but my meditation seems to have done something. Not done something. I feel a bit more accomplished in it in the last couple of weeks. I do think this is going to be very boring to think about, but we have a track that we listen to do our meditation to. It starts and ends with the little Agoenka's moaning or singing or whatever you want to call it. Which is, sorry, we sound very rude, but it does sound
that was actually a very good impression.
It does sound exactly.
What's rude about doing a good impression?
It does sound exactly like that, and worse at times. He does cough twice on a recording.
one of the coughs has got a lot of phlegm in it, and I know that when he does that one, I'm almost there.
Yeah, it's about a minute and a half left when that happens, and it gets
my back thanks him for that phlegm every time.
But that's the problem. We've gotten very used to that, and I think I used to find that the singing at the beginning would get me into it, and the singing at the end was quite a nice way to round it off. But yeah, it's just become distracting at the beginning and a reminder that it's nearly over at the end. And so they've kind of become negative versions of themselves. Anyway, we started using just a track that has like a bell at the beginning or a gong at the beginning, and then 40 minutes later another gong. And I just find, for whatever reason, that's the only thing changed. Maybe that's the only thing that's changed, but that's the only like practical, tangible thing that's changed. And I just have found myself even just going into it with a better attitude. Like sometimes I sit down with the intention of meditating, then the singing starts and I just mind wander immediately, waiting for the silence. And then by that point, I'm probably not even in the right space, and the meditation is probably about 5 minutes out of that 40. It's just really terrible. Whereas,
you say that's terrible, but just for the record, I think that's pretty much normal.
Yeah.
I think when people talk about meditation, we all get all caught up in the idea that everyone else can do it and can do it really well. And I mean, certainly everything I've ever read or everybody I've ever listened to talk about this is basically having the same experience.
And
those 5 minutes are really... They're really important.
They're the important ones.
So are the other 35. Actually.
And all of the like coming back to, so even if it's not a consistent, if it's not like just a 5 minute block in the middle, it's like 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there. And I completely know intellectually to not cling to that too much and cling to the idea of a good meditation and a bad meditation. But I've just felt more accomplished in it the last couple of weeks generally. Some of them I've managed to concentrate from the beginning, which is, I mean, the other day, a couple of days ago, it just happened. And I was like, this reminds me of as close to as I could have gotten on the silent retreat. And I think it has changed me a little bit in the day. And maybe this is me putting too much onto it. And maybe this is me knowing I've had a good meditation in the morning. It puts you in, you've put yourself in a better brain. Not the meditation has worked. Or it's both, or it's neither. And it doesn't matter. The point is that I'm looking into it too much. I probably should just leave it be. But I've just had a bit more patience with some things and more in the moment realizations as opposed to the next day or a couple hours later. I've been able to kind of catch myself thinking or dwelling or, you know, little things. And it's tiny and no one else would ever notice, but I've just felt in myself a little bit more grounded and present, which is nice and makes you feel good. So with regards to meaning and transcendence, it's probably a bit of both of those. And spirituality, maybe. I
mean, I think there's so many different points to pick up on, really. I mean, I think, you say nothing's really changed, or that all that's changed is that you're listening to a different track when you're doing it. But ultimately, almost certainly something has changed. Even if it doesn't last, even if it's small, short term or whatever, but something's changed. And then also that thing about how your day gets better as a result of doing it. Those things, we talk about this all the time, those things feed into each other, don't they? So you have a good meditation session, which means you have a better day, which means that you have a better meditation session, which means you have a better day, and on. And of course that can go in a negative way too. But I don't think that is a small deal. I think that's a very big deal.
Oh, thank you.
Well, no, not really to
it's cool.
pay you a compliment. I just think it's...
I take it back.
No, but I think what you're describing is kind of what meditation's for. The thing is that at no point, when you do any of this stuff, or pretty much everything we've ever talked about on this podcast, about anything remotely spiritually or self-improvement even, you don't suddenly do it and get it done and then fireworks go off. Yeah. You just see tiny, minuscule differences, or you probably don't see tiny, minuscule differences. Probably what's been happening is that you've had loads of tiny, minuscule differences that you've not noticed the last God knows how long, and then all of a sudden you notice something else.
Yeah, I think you're then attributing all of the progress you've done over months to the thing that you know has changed and gone, oh wow, all of a sudden I've just realised I'm much better at this. And it's like, well, actually no, it's probably been a gradual thing, but I'm now seeing it, which I think is what you're just saying. But yeah, so okay, or maybe it's not a small thing, but I must say before we started recording, I was grasping. I was like, gosh, I haven't done anything. And I'm like, oh no, there's this subtle... I think it's good to sit back and reflect, because sometimes it is those subtle things that you can miss. I mean, this is why, journaling is pants sometimes. But the other day I was writing and I was making sure I was writing as my thoughts were changing, and that doesn't really make much sense.
Automatic writing.
Yes, that's it. I was trying to do automatic writing rather than coming with a prepared idea, because the amount of times I open that journal and think, what am I even going to write? Like I try and not do it every day just to take the pressure off of doing it every day, but that then puts a weird pressure on, okay, well, you have to have something to write. If you're going to open it, you have to have something to write about. So recently I've just tried to be like, I'm going to still keep it sporadic to keep pressure off, but there are times where I'm opening that book and I still don't know what I'm going to write until I start.
Oh, surely there's somebody in your life that you've always got gratitude for.
No, can't think of any. Can't think of one. No, but I don't always use it as a gratitude either. I quite like using it as a bit of everything. And I can't just write you every bloody day,
Oh, could you not?
No, that's another rule I've made for myself. No, I'm joking. But yeah, so there's something in that kind of reflecting and letting your brain go there to realise the things that aren't available right immediately. That's why I doing this. To be honest, that's why that beginning bit of the podcast, forcing yourself to think about something for the last 2 weeks, I probably would have missed that had I not had to sit here and really think.
Yeah, it's almost like it's for us more than it is for the listener.
Yeah, well, we said that from the beginning.
Yeah,
we did say that from the beginning. And you're just the little weird voyeurs listening in.
You lucky devils.
So that's me for the last 2 weeks. How about you, Dave? What have you done that has increased your feelings of transcendence or spirituality with a little less meaning? I've done them in the wrong order now. I'm just, vibing off of your failures.
I think failures was probably the type of vibe that Bobby Brown was singing about. The song Vibe.
You got that vibe.
Yeah, exactly that.
That one.
So I'm pretty sure you could sort of see it in his eyes.
Vibe. That one.
And his relationship that he was probably singing about failures. Anyhow.
Segue.
Well, I don't know how to answer this question on this occasion. And I've had a rather extraordinary couple of weeks. And honestly, before starting this podcast, I was planning on talking about something completely different and just not addressing it.
Okay.
But that thing, which has actually also been quite a big deal in a way, or at least to me, not to anybody else, probably fits quite well into what we're going to be talking about later. Don't worry, we'll get there. But so I had that on my back burner as a sort of, Dave, if you lose your nerve, you can fall back on this one.
Okay.
Just pretend you've not really done anything. But I am keen. Again, it doesn't matter to anyone apart from myself, but I'm very keen to be as honest as I can be. But equally, if I were to describe everything, I'm being very cryptic, I know, but we'll get to it. But if I was to describe everything, then this episode would be written off. And so this is probably something that we need to address later, another time, and we can probably, and I'll have a little bit more. I will have been able to step away from it a little bit more, and we'll be a bit further down the path. So we'll see. So, but I think, as much as it fills me with a sense of dread, I am going to talk about one aspect of what has happened over the last couple of weeks. And that aspect is actually going to be about prayer. We've sort of brought up prayer here and there in a very kind of...
Prayer here and there.
Prayer here and there.
That's your spin-off podcast, by the way.
That is my spin-off podcast. Join Dave on Prayer or Be There.
Prayer here and there.
Prayer here and
there. You're out.
So I'm just going to start talking and see what happens. And we'll see.
Which is so different to what we normally do on this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Normally this is much more planned. But like I say, I wasn't sure whether I was going to have the balls to do this or not. So we've talked about prayer before. We've talked about prayer in a meditative sort of a way. And obviously it can be very similar, or it is very similar. In some ways you could even argue that they're basically the same thing. They might look a bit different. They might they more or less do the same thing, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. They might be different ways of getting to the same thing. But I read a book, was reading a book, probably when we recorded the last episode, actually, which is called, let me get it right, I always get this a bit wrong, Living Like Fools, Praying Like Monks is the name of the book. It's by someone called Tyler Staton, who is very much a Christian. And this is very much a Christian book. So just to warn you, if that's triggering, you can fast forward for a bit. And so I read this book relatively open-mindedly, in a lot of ways, just in the same way that I read a lot of books that are of a sort of spiritual and religious nature, just out of interest, really. And I'll be honest, the book itself, because it's interesting as a sort of non-Christian person with no real background in that. And this is very much the same of all the other stuff we've read. Maybe getting less so with Buddhism because we've read so much, I think. But like whenever I read about Hinduism, or we talked about this on the last episode, it's like you've got no basis for what it is that you're reading. So therefore, things that probably can't sound very normal or sound very natural to someone who knows where they're coming from would be able to have got a lot more out of this book than I would. And I was just coming from a sort of fairly secular. I don't think I can even call myself secular really anymore. And I don't mean because of anything that's happened recently. I just mean generally, we're not really secular people, are we? Actually, it turns out, I think we were. But But that, anyway, that's a whole nother point for a whole nother time.
That's a whole nother time.
But I read this book and I really liked it. And what I got out of it, what I was trying to say there was that I think probably about 70 or 80% of it just didn't, it was lovely. He was written really well. He's an interesting guy. And so I was able to get some stuff out of it. But actually the real meaning of it, I think it's fair to say that I probably missed the vast majority of it, and that's fine. And I don't mind that with books. I can, my memory's so bad that it doesn't last long anyway. So I just let myself enjoy it in the moment, really. But what it did leave me with at the end of reading this book, and I would very much recommend the book as well, particularly if you're in any way interested about this subject, was this sense that I should try saying a prayer. I'm not going to give you the whole history, but fundamentally I don't pray. I've never prayed. I don't really, obviously at school you say the Lord's Prayer or whatever, but I'm just not someone who prays. But it did sound like something that was quite nice. I can definitely see the therapeutic aspects of it, all these sorts of things. So I just came to the conclusion I'm going to give this a try and just see what happens, just out of interest, really, more than anything else. And so this just sat with me for a few days. I finished the book, sat with me for a few days, and there's a lot more history to this, which I'm just not going to go into, I suppose. Again, we'll do that. That'll be for another time. But suffice to say, I was in a place where I felt able to try a prayer. And about 2 weeks ago, I went for a run. I went in an unusual direction as far as my normal direction for a run. Yeah. And I had to feed a cat halfway through the run, which is very unusual. I don't normally stop halfway through. I don't know if any of these things are important, but suffice to say I did something, I'm quite a routine person. I more or less always do the same thing, and I did something differently. And when I left for the run, I thought to myself, I'm running up towards, you've spoken about Alexandra Park before, which is a big park by our house. I'm running up towards Alexandra Park, and I always used to run through to this place called Old Raw Gill, which is more or less at the top of the park. There's some woodlands, and then if you go all the way through the woodlands, there's a sort of waterfall. And that used to be my normal running route, and so I would always do it. But I haven't done that for 2 years or something. Again, I don't know if any of these things are important, but I'm just mumbling.
Mumble away.
So I started the run. A little bit into it, I started to think to myself about prayer, this thing, I often think a lot when I'm running. It's a really nice part of running. And I was thinking about this book and stuff. And I thought, you know what? I should just do it. And I'd already had this idea of if I'm going to pray, I'd do it outside. I don't know why. I like the idea of a sort of wild God, I think, more than anything else.
I think that's the first, kind of my first awareness of your interest in spirituality and otherness was definitely learning about more maybe not pagan, but that kind of idea of gods that are outside. I'm trying to think of the one that they call upon in that Helia program.
Yeah, I can't remember, but
I can't remember his name, but it looks like the Green Man. But
not a good one.
Yeah, just no, he was a brilliant one. There's someone that there's spirits and weird things that they call upon, and there's a name of one. I can't remember his name, but he looks like the Green Man, basically.
Yeah.
That's my first memory of you actually.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Entering into this sort of stuff. So it would make sense that you'd want to go outside. I mean, you don't like any attention on yourself, so I guess you would have had to find somewhere very secluded.
Well, that as well. Yeah, that as
which
well.
Adds to it.
But again, I hadn't planned this really. I'd just gone for a run and halfway through thought I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought of Old Raw Gill just because that was on my running route and that was where I always used to go. And I thought I'll just go through to there, and it is very secluded, and it is quite. I mean, it's quite. I don't want to use the word magical really because it's definitely not in keeping with the thing I was going to do. I mean, magic is sort of a bad word for this in this context, but yeah, it's a place that has a certain feel to it. Whatever.
Feels like a little fairy woodland. It's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, I decided to do that. I decided to do my normal run. I fed a cat. And then I thought, I'm going to go and do this. I'm just going to go and do it. No one's going to know I've done it. It's no big deal. I'm just going to go and do it. So I ran down my normal route. And in order to get there, you have to run along the side of a stream on this really tiny path. And when I got to the path, keeping in mind it's been at least a year, if not probably a couple of years since I've actually even been there, let alone run up there, the path was closed off. And there is something in my head that clicked and was like, something's trying to stop me from saying this prayer. I can't explain why that thought came into my head. It's definitely not a normal type of thought that I have walking around the place. And I thought I'm not gonna let it. I'm just gonna do this. I've decided in a way this was also bullheadedness. I decided I know. I decided I was going to go to this place and do this thing, and then suddenly I wasn't able to, and I was like, right, now I'm going to. So I climbed over a little fence, and then some of the trees that have fallen down they've put across the path. They really don't want people running down this thing, and it says it's not safe, and it says it's all falling into the river and stuff. And that of course just made me really want to get along this path. So there was points where there's like a little bridge that goes across a small stream. The bridge had literally come away from the path, so you sort of had to hop over it onto a bar that had a big sign saying "Do not walk on this bridge," and in order to get across, so I did, and I just kept going. And there was some sort of mindset. I can't really go into it now, I don't think, without talking for hours. But there was something, whether it be inside me or not, that was kind of just saying, "You need to get through this." So I did, kept going. But I got to a point in the path where it was just impossible. There was like 3 massive trees across the thing. I tried climbing over them. I couldn't climb over them. So I was like, right, I'll go round. So to the one side of the path is the water, and the other side of the path is just like shrubland, and it was basically full of stinging nettles and thorns and whatever, just like undergrowth. And so I was like, right, well, I'm just going to have to go round. So I just ran through this undergrowth, and I could feel like just getting stung and sort of forming my own path and just forcing my way through. So got to the other side of that, man, and then at some point they stopped saying you can't walk here. So I got to a point about halfway through the down the path where I could, then it was just normal.
Where they're just like, no fucking lunatics come this far.
Well,
you don't need to put any signs out anymore.
Well, no, because you can get to it from other paths.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So it's not quite.
You've just
not
gone
quite
far
like
enough where.
Yeah, there's just a section of it that you can't go on. So anyway, I ran and I got to this place. There wasn't a soul around, and I said a prayer out loud with my eyes closed and my little hands together. And I couldn't tell you what it was really. I more or less sort of said something along the lines of, I suppose it was probably. I mean, it wasn't. I don't want to sort of downplay it, but then I don't think you need to know what the prayer was, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't need to. Well, you can. You do. But I just mean the listener. But it was along the lines of kind of, whoever you are, wherever you are, show me something.
Yeah.
Show me the way, more or less. Show me something sounds like it was like, I'm Dave. Hey, God, show me things.
Show me things.
It wasn't. I hope it didn't come across that way.
I hope you didn't say it like that.
No, I don't think I did. I wasn't like being Zeus.
Your prayer voice is awful. Oh my God. God.
You probably, yeah.
Probably.
I wouldn't know. And then I ran back. And so there's only a couple of other things I'm going to say about it, really, because, again, this was the start of then the most extraordinary 2 weeks of my life. Sorry to be so vague, but I'm going to be. But
well,
I
you
would
need to
say
save the content for the future podcast.
That's not the point.
I know, I'm joking.
We need to get on with this nonsense Buddhism stuff.
Oh.
No, I'm only kidding. But I will say this, and these things can 100%. I'm not saying these like they're supernatural things by any means, but it's something similar to what you described once about your experience of looking at a tree and suddenly realizing what tree was, more or less.
Yeah,
I've sort of simplified what you said.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I shut my eyes. I said this prayer. When I opened my eyes again, it was like everything was in full color. And it hadn't been before. It was like I could see detail that just hadn't been there. The colours were all brighter.
Like you're on mushrooms.
A bit like I was on mushrooms. Yeah, you're not far off.
Yeah. I mean, that's what my walk through the woods was like that time.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I was like, Jesus, everything's big and bright all of a sudden.
Yeah. And I mean, this area is beautiful anyway. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. It would fill you with awe if you were just wandering around in a mood. Yeah. But it was really... I can't describe the feeling, and I don't want to describe the feeling.
Try, yeah.
But it was absolutely extraordinary. And let's just say, I suppose, two things. I'll say one thing, which, again, I'm not necessarily claiming is some sort of huge supernatural thing. But when I got home, I didn't have a single sting. I hadn't been touched by it. Like I'd run through proper stinging nettles, and they hadn't touched me. Now, of course, I'm sure that can be, explained biologically. I'm sure it's something to do with adrenaline and what have you. But without question, I mean, I was literally just ploughing into stinging nettles.
Get me to the prayer.
So that was rather unusual. And then I suppose the only other thing I'm going to say, and I feel very uncomfortable saying it, is that pretty much from that point onwards, it's kind of felt like that prayer's just being answered continuously. And I don't want to pick that apart.
No.
We've had a lot of conversations about it, and obviously there is no question that some things, I don't know if all of them, but some things can be explained away by cognitive bias and things, and no question, and maybe all of it can, and I'm quite comfortable with that. But there's something about the way that I feel which is different, which can also be described away by, well, yeah, you had this experience and now you feel different.
Yeah,
big surprise. It's nothing supernatural.
I mean, I think, like, I want to ask lots of questions that I almost, because we did have a long conversation about this, so I feel like all my questions I could probably answer based on what we talked about the other day, and I don't want to dig.
Well, if there's any that you think are appropriate for the listener to hear about, then feel free to ask the questions, I suppose. Because I feel, for me, and obviously we talk quite openly on this podcast generally, but for me, saying something like that out loud is
huge.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's two things. This is at the beginning of figuring out what's going on, and it's probably too early to really... you don't want to explain things away too much. So I think that's the main reason to not really go there for the rest of this podcast. I
don't think I want to explain them away at all.
No.
Which is possibly not the...
No, but I think there's much that is personal to you that you haven't even gotten to yet. So I just think, that's probably as much as you need to go on the podcast. But what I would say is, isn't it awesome that you, by putting yourself, you followed a feeling, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that, and it can be explained in many different ways. But like, I really like the idea of everything that's before gets you to the point you are now, whether you have any control over that or not, biologically or spiritually or anything. That's, I kind of almost like not even really thinking about it, just accepting that everything you are is a culmination of everything past, and then it happens, or whatever happens. But it's just, for you who is so routined, for whatever reason, you broke out of it and followed whatever it was inside you or outside of you that was doing this. And I think it's a bit of a reminder to people to like break out of normality every now and then. Not normality, not to say you did something really weird and wonderful, that you kind of did.
I just ran a different direction when I left the house.
Yeah, but I think
and fed a cat who hated me.
Yeah, she hates everyone. But maybe she was a spiritual being guiding you, who knows. But
well, actually, funnily enough, I did say this to you, and I've never put these two things together. It was the nicest she's ever been. This is our friend's cat.
She's been vile to me the night before.
Yeah, and she's scratched the absolute living hell out of me. And whenever I've fed her for them, she always tries to get me, like constantly.
Yeah.
She just wants to kill me. She hates me, and she was really nice.
Yeah,
actually,
she knew you were on the path.
Maybe.
I just read a book it was called Feline Philosophy by John Gray. Everyone should read that because that's just wonderful, and that's all about how cats are better than humans in so many ways at being happy. But anyway, nothing doing with any of that. I just think it's really, really huge. Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to not overplay it, but like over talk about your thing. But it is huge, and I'm very proud of you for just following something wherever it goes, which I think is big, because I think again we like to be safe, we like to over intellectualize things, we like to know what's going to happen to us, and sometimes we don't just give over and go, I wonder what will happen. A very boring modern version of this. It's not modern now, but
more modern than my experience 2 weeks ago.
No, but there's a really pop book called Yes Man, that Danny Wallace. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And like,
that's not more modern than me.
No, it's not. It's not. But what I'm trying to say is, it's like it's
20-year-old book.
It's very pop culture-y. Just could be any old crap. But what was really good about that, and what I think is a takeaway generally, is that idea of just being open to things, whatever that means. And that can mean a ton of different things, physically, spiritually, intellectually. But there is something about, as long as you're open to things, that's the only place that you can, that's where you find the new, you find the interesting, you find the whatever's going to make you transcend. You definitely don't get that from repetition of something that isn't helping you. I just think when something is like going ding, 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 time to change now, it's about being, if you're feeling open to it, then go with it, because there might be a reason. And there might be no reason. You might make your own reason, but it's just, all you know is if you don't do anything different, nothing changes.
Well, I think the first, if not one of the first, if not the first Western book about mindfulness is called Total Catastrophe Living, which I've always liked as a title. I've no idea really exactly what it's referring to in the context of the book itself, but that's kind of what this is, isn't it? It's just, I mean, one thing I would say that over the past 2 weeks, which I've not done for a long time, is to do exactly that, just follow your nose a little bit in a way that, as a very routine person, and as somebody who likes routines and still likes routines, it's not like I've thrown off the shackles, nor do I think I would want to.
Right.
I think routine is fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
But that's one of the effects that this has had on me, for better or for worse, really. And it doesn't actually matter. I mean, it has all been for better as far as I can make out, but has just been that it's made me do a load of things that I didn't think I would do. And every single one of them has turned out to open a door on something else. And I mean, this is 2 weeks. I mean, this isn't, This is, I mean, 2 weeks is long enough, but it's not necessarily that everything's changed or anything. But it's just that, I suppose it's something about shifting your view, maybe, which which meditation does. And I mean, one of the things, so it's interesting. I mean, I actually had a conversation yesterday with somebody, it doesn't matter who, and about the kind of exactly what you just said, weirdly enough. All of the things that happen to get you to a certain point, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you can word this in multitude of different ways, but you can absolutely, we had this conversation yesterday, I think. You can say this is chaos, or you can say this is like God's plan, or let's remove God from it for the sake of this conversation and say like the universe
predetermination or blah 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 blah.
And actually those things are the same thing. We're just creating metaphors for the same thing, which is that whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, they're the same, so it doesn't really matter. You can read, it doesn't matter how you read things. It makes no difference about your, my experience. I can either read as this fancy little thing that happened because maybe there was still some mushrooms in my system from a few years ago. I mean, that's not how I read it, but I know that's not how things work, but or that God was directly talking to me, right? And then anything in between. Yeah. And ultimately, you are who you pretend to be. So it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. And they're actually all the same. They're just different words for the same thing. Yeah,
I like the idea of through meditation, at least. But there's tons of different ways to think about this. But the importance of being in the present moment. So to not really worry about how you got to a certain point, and not really worry about where it's taking you, but to fully go with whatever's going on in that moment, because that's all you actually have. You could die in like 2 seconds time, and
I mean 100%.
Living is literally the act of living, not the act of planning or the act of reminiscing. It is just right there and then. Another thing I learned from the cat book.
There you go.
That's why cats are so happy. They don't know their own mortality. They don't know what death is. They don't know that they will die until the moment they're dying, and then they don't care. So that's why they're so chill, just like washing themselves and laying down all day.
Okay.
You can lock a cat in a room and it'll be very happy with itself. A human, not so much. Wondering when it'll get out. Cat, meh, we'll get over it.
But I think that's absolutely true. And I think meditation does get you closer to that sort of cat mindset. And I think actually, and again, I said this yesterday, all of the meditation I've done has given me the space in order to consider other things, I suppose, maybe, or whatever. It's just emptied out enough of. It's not just meditation, I suppose. It's a lot of lifestyle things as well. But I feel like a lot of people come to these sorts of crises, if you like, when everything's going wrong. And for me, it's been completely the opposite. Yeah. Things have been going wrong for many, many years, and I've kind of sorted myself out to a point. I'm not certainly a long way from any kind of perfection by any means, but I'm about at the best place I've been probably in my entire adult life, if not my entire life, full stop. And that has opened up a space in order for me to think about other things and have the space to think about other things. Yeah. I don't really know. I wasn't going anywhere with that, but it's a beautiful. But I think it's I think meditation has allowed that, which is if you're gonna if you think I've turned into a crazy Christian, and if I'm talking about this thing that happened to me in Christian terms, it's quite interesting that I got to them via, I believe, in fact I don't believe, I know I got to them through almost Buddhist means. Yeah. It's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting overlap. And not just Buddhist means, actually, because I think the experience we had that we talked about last episode about going on a Hare Krishna festival, and I said this actually, I think, on the last episode, being on that, made me realise one thing, which happened by pure chance, to realise this thing at the same time that I happened to be reading a book, probably the most Christian book I've ever read, I have these, I think I hold some beliefs, and again, we maybe talk about those at a different time, not that they're particularly outrageous or anything, but I hold some beliefs, and you can funnel these things into this cool other religion, like, I could be a Hare Krishna and wear a fancy outfit, but actually culturally that just doesn't, it gives me nothing. We went on a big festival, and it was glorious and wonderful, but I didn't feel any spirituality in that context. You
feel as a Western white person, you just do feel like it's other. You do feel a bit voyeuristic.
Yeah, and of course, in the context of Buddhism, when Buddhism is sold to white people in the West, they remove any sort of woo-woo from it at all, because they know that people will be turned off by that. Yeah. So actually, there's not many places that you can go to consider any of these sorts of questions, apart from obviously the So Bet Punks podcast.
Of course, basically.
And it's in. But I find it interesting that all of these things, every step you take, which potentially you would think, that's going in a completely weird and wonderful direction. I don't know. Again, it brings you to wherever you end up. And that is either a path which has been created for you, or it's chaos, and it's fine either way.
Yeah, I like that. There we are.
There we are.
There we are.
Well, thanks for listening to that. I feel better now.
Good. Thank you for sharing. It's a big old thing. Even if, you're not saying all of it, but...
Well, I think if I start saying all of it, then definitely be.
No one's got 3 weeks, David.
Yeah,
well, actually, we'll do, but still.
Yeah, we got ages. So let's move on to let's leave it there.
Yeah.
And we will revisit some of this, and we'll see.
Yeah.
I need some time.
Need some time. What better than to carry on with our trudge through the Eightfold Path of Buddhism, the Noble Eightfold Path. We are on the fifth.
We've done
the
4
fifth
of these.
part now. We've done 4. Please don't make me remember what they were. Just go and listen to the old ones. But we will. That's the spirit. So today we are talking about right livelihood. As always, me and Dave have different kind of reference points. We've read different books, so we're going to kind of bring together some of the ideas of the people that we've read about, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion about how we can interpret that in a more, I don't know, modern or whatever suits our kind of thinking sort of way.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that of all of the Eightfold Path, this is the one that doesn't have really any... there's not really any way of picking this apart. It is what it is.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of theology behind it. It's just, we'll get into it. But
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty blunt and it's pretty basic.
It's pretty blunt. I mean, I usually pick from 3 books, and one of them just has a one-liner on this, so I've just omitted that.
Yeah.
Because it is fairly to the point.
Well, Brad Warner, who I always go back to with these sorts of things, says literally exactly what you would expect. Sometimes it seems like American Buddhists think there are only 2 acceptable jobs, yoga teacher and therapist, but that's just silly.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much any job you do can be done in the spirit of right livelihood, although in some jobs it's harder to do this than in others. Still, it's not like there are Buddha-approved jobs and Buddha-unapproved jobs. It's more a matter of how you do what you do for a living.
I like that. That's probably a better version of it than the 2 I've got, in as much as the 2 versions I've got have come from pretty staunch Buddhist teachers of old. So they're a bit more to the point with Buddhism. So firstly, I'm going to go with Goenka, who's when we went on the silent retreat, we mentioned Goenka all the time. He's the chap that made all that up. And he has said that essentially right livelihood must meet 2 criteria: to not break the 5 precepts. Now, Dave, can you remember what the 5 precepts are?
Right,
I've got them.
Okay.
I've got them.
Don't kill.
Mm-hmm.
No, sexual activity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, they're really obvious, aren't they? No.
Go on.
Oh my God!
If you'd taken mushrooms, you would not be. You would not be
intoxicants.
Yeah, cool. That's the exact word. Well done.
Yeah. Go on.
Stealing.
Oh yeah.
And false speech, lying.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So.
Should have got them really.
That's all right. You're, we're barely Buddhist anymore, so don't worry about it. I'm joking. So Goenka says 2 criteria: to not break the 5 precepts and to not do anything that encourages others to break them. And this is where both Goenka and Thich Nhat Hanh kind of correlate here. They're quite strict on their approach. They say you shouldn't do something that harms others. So, a butcher is a terrible idea. But also, if maybe you don't do the butchery yourself, but you still sell meat, or sell maybe the means to kill animals, or the means to break a precept, they would consider that was still not right livelihood. Goenka also said that even if you do a job that is harm-free work, but you maybe have the intention of causing harm, and he likens it to someone who produces crops, hopes for someone else to have like a famine so that they can sell more or something like that. So if you wish ill upon something so that you could do well, that wouldn't work. Or for example, controversial, but a vaccine company hoping for a pandemic is the one that they bring up.
Yeah.
Not sure why they bring that up.
Or making up a pandemic. I'm only kidding.
I know. I was just
worry,
like, dance around.
We're all just having fun.
We're all just fun. One thing that Thich Nhat Hanh says is he's a bit more nice and kind of floaty about it. It's about finding a way to earn your living without transgressing your ideals of love and compassion. And so this was more linked to what Brad Warner says, that kind of idea of if you do your job, but you're embodying the parts of the Eightfold Path. So if you're, not everyone can choose a job that definitely doesn't cause harm to others. But if you're trying to minimize the harm you do, if you're treating people well with good thought and good speech and all these sorts of things, then it's about intention again. I think it's always about intention. So that kind of relieves us of, not everyone can pick the Thich Nhat Hanh talks about, an artist is a really good version of Right Livelihood. I'm like, well, we can't all do that.
Yeah, my drawings wouldn't cut the mustard.
That is true.
I think I do think that's really interesting because ultimately the world that we live in now, and we've touched on this quite a lot, where capitalism, massive corporations have taken over so much, it's extraordinarily difficult, I'm sure, for most people to look at their workplaces and not think, well, mine might be fine, for example, but the person that owns this company also owns something else. And so as a result of that, very much, it's very much about how you relate to your job, maybe, as much as anything else. I mean, you do a job, for example, you are a nurse, and I don't think anyone would say a nurse is a bad livelihood.
But
right? But I've met a lot of nurses who do their job very badly. Yeah. And you could also argue to a point, if you wanted to be, and I'm doing this on purpose, I'm certainly not suggesting this is the case, but just if you really wanted to pick apart everything that we do in the modern world, you could say, well, being a nurse is great, but terrible for the environment, isn't it? You've got all of those aseptic techniques. You use all of these things once. You're continuously throwing away plastic. You're continuously throwing away things. You're printing off tons of notes about everybody.
Paper free, David.
Okay, well, you were. Well,
no,
you
we're
were.
not.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, I'm a psychiatric nurse.
Yeah,
so
and some people would
debilitating
consider
drugs.
or equally, you deal with forensic patients. So actually, anybody that felt that all prisons were evil could include you in that if they wanted, but that would be their decision. But
I think this is where the especially Thich Nhat Hanh actually comes into this. He was I've mentioned it before, but The Art of Living is the first Buddhist book I ever read and was the most impactful for sure. And he goes to prisons and he always talks about the idea of anyone could turn out this way. If you were brought up in the exact same way that some of the prisoners were brought up, then who's to say we wouldn't have done some horrible things. I always think that part of my job, there is tons of not right livelihood in there, but it's the intention behind it. We use the Mental Health Act. I mean, that's depriving that person of their liberty.
Well, you literally restrain people and give them things they don't want.
Exactly.
But you're right. It's the reason it's right livelihood is because it's for their overall. It's for their good.
Yeah, and for the public.
They may not ever appreciate. No. I've restrained and given medication to many hundreds of people that didn't think even at any point during their lives, even when they were well or not well, it didn't matter. They never thought that medication was what they needed.
And also you have, whenever we go for our restraint training, because obviously we want to do it the least amount possible, but there is a video that they show us, which is family members saying we want a 0% restraint kind of happening and because they've lost loved ones to really badly done restraints.
100%,
which I completely understand. But that means you then have people that really truly do see what you're doing as pretty evil.
But also there's an irony there, isn't there? Because actually restraint, we're being quite specific, we've immediately got onto this, but
sorry.
No, it's fine. But restraining someone safely actually involves more force than less force. And by that I don't ever mean harming anybody by any means, but what I'm saying is if you went into a restraint, as I've experienced in my career, if you go into the need to restrain somebody and someone doesn't really want to do it or doesn't really feel comfortable to it and doesn't really go in and just do the thing that they need to do,
get in, get out and just
which isn't pleasant and no one actually wants to do, obviously, then that can be even more dangerous, both for that person and for the people around them. So there's a weird again it's about doing something which is in the interest of the person and everybody else, But you are walking a thin line, I suppose.
I think it's always having that intention. I guess something else that made me think of this, I mean, everything falls into place, doesn't it? We watched The Green Mile this week.
It was lovely.
Oh my God, so lovely. But I've only watched it once before in my life as a young'un and cried my eyes out then. And yeah, nothing's changed. But one thing that I absolutely take from it, and I think maybe because of where I work, it resonates incredibly strongly, is this connection. You can have a connection with anyone. And if you've seen The Green Mile or haven't, you probably know that there's someone that
if Yes Men is a current book that's just come out, then I think The Green Mile is also, it's probably in cinemas, isn't it?
But there's a big scary looking guy put on death row for a crime that is questionable whether he did or didn't, and at the end there's a team of 4 that have been looking after him and looking after everyone on death row, and they really do. Tom Hanks's character says, we're here to keep people calm and sane, and that's our job. They're already here, they're already going to be put to death. We're just not here to make their lives any harder. We're here to be kind. And they show great, ridiculous kindness at the end of the film with this one particular guy. And it made me really, really think about Right Livelihood, specifically about my job, because my job is I look after rapists, murderers, paedophiles, all sorts, who, for the most part, were very, very unwell when they did what they did. But some people pretty compos mentis when they did what they did, and later become unwell. All of and everything in between, and everything.
It's also wildly grey, isn't it?
Very grey.
Incredibly
grey. And we're always taught, we have to recognise our biases, but you're there to treat a person and not their crime. The crime was dealt with elsewhere. You're there to try and help this person be well, to either go back to prison or to go out. And I thought of that with The Green Mile, and I thought of that when it comes to Right Livelihood. It's just about that. If you can enact, and I think I've already said it, that Thich Nhat Hanh says it, and so does Goenka. It's about enacting the Eightfold Path, enacting thinking well of people, speaking well, being mindful, doing right action, having right effort. We haven't gone into some of these yet, but just all parts of it is about being present in that moment and knowing why you're doing what you're doing. And in nursing, that's really easy. We reflect all the time. We have reflective practice. We have supervision. We have ample opportunities to sit and work out why we feel the way that we feel and why we do the things that we do. But that's essentially what the Eightfold Path is asking us to do. And I think that's what Right Livelihood asks us. It's saying, do things with good intention or correct intention, an intention you understand. And if you're doing something, we talk about transference a lot at work, and we've talked about transference I think only last week or the week before, about that kind of realizing why you feel a certain way and what that tells you about what that other person's going through and things like that. I just think all of this is what Right Livelihood is asking us to do, not just pick a job that doesn't harm others and doesn't encourage people to drink and doesn't, because like you say, this capitalist world, it's a bit difficult to just pick the perfect job to do that with. And we've just discussed, even nursing has tons of problems. But it's about that intention and about that space to reflect on what you bring to that work and how you can do it in a mindful, nice way.
Yeah. But in that context, maybe a follow-up question would be, so could you be a butcher and deal with it appropriately and do it in a could you be a bartender if we're saying intoxicants are bad and your specific job is to sell booze to somebody, could you actually do that with Right Livelihood? And I would argue certainly in that case you 100% could.
Yes.
Because who looks after the people that you're serving and doesn't serve them alcohol if they've gone too far,
and gives them a glass of water every other drink.
Yeah,
I agree.
But with a butcher, apart from you can be kind to your customers, I don't know. And I don't have, I am vegetarian and everything, but I don't necessarily have strong views. I'm certainly not against someone who becomes a butcher. It's not my place to be, but also I'm not. But I suppose I'm not sure if that can be Right Livelihood, can it?
So I think that this gets answered in the Thich Nhat Hanh book, more from the point of butchering animals while they're alive, or to have animals. He describes that. He says, we would hope, the world, the ideal is to
Buddha.
not do those jobs. But if you find yourself on this path, you enter into this path and you're looking at your job, but you can't get out of your job as it stands, or you've inherited this farm from your family, and actually, you know, right livelihood in this case means carrying on a family legacy. It means not putting your family out of work who have done this for years.
Feeding your children,
and then also, you know, the way in which you care for your animals while they're alive, the way in which you can slaughter an animal in the least painful way. And again, I'm vegetarian as well, and I would rather this didn't happen. But I have always said, you know, one of the reasons I became vegetarian was like, if I could slaughter it, I'd eat it, but I couldn't kill an animal. So, you know, kudos if you can. And again, we're human beings, and humankind has killed animals since the beginning of time, lived with animals, and then eventually started killing them. So I'm not going to go into whether it's right or wrong. I do think that we have a moral brain, and so we can intellectualize it and therefore not do it anyway. But those who can, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not ever going to argue with you about the morals of it, because you can actually do the thing. And that's my own way of reckoning with it, I guess. So I think whilst, you know, killing is not compassionate and it is breaking one of the precepts, going back to what Thich Nhat Hanh says, if you can find a way to do something with love and compassion is probably more than one. Going back to the Green Mile, you know, they worked on death row. They legally put people to death, but putting people to death is wrong. But they are in that job, so they did it in the kindest way they could. They looked after those guys.
Apart from that one guy from the X-Files.
Yeah, well, he was mean.
With a little spiteful face.
He was mean. We don't like him.
We don't like him.
But the idea, you know, one thing I really took from that movie was just overwhelming sense of compassion. These guys really pushed the boundaries of what would be acceptable, took risks in order to make people have the best version of their remaining time that they could, right until the end. And I just think that is probably a really good example of right livelihood. It's not the correct job. They put people to death, but they're in it, and they did it in the kindest way that they possibly could. And that's how I see you could do anything, even butchering. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's brilliant. One thing that Thich Nhat Hanh says is there is the idea of a collective karma as well. So butchers, they're not butchers. It's not their fault. We have a culture that eats meat. So if we didn't eat meat, there wouldn't be a butcher. There wouldn't be a need for butchery. There wouldn't be a need to keep animals and slaughter them. So actually, should we blame that butcher for their crappy choice of job? Or is it actually part of all of our culture to accept that we eat meat and we bring this upon ourselves to cause people jobs that put them in a position to not have right livelihood?
I suppose what an uppity
thing?
Vegan would say is, well, I don't eat meat,
but our culture does.
People should be better. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just saying I can see one of the reasons why I maybe can't entirely get my head around how, I mean, I can, by the way. I'm just sort of arguing for the sake of it, really. But like, one of the reasons why I would find it slightly difficult to get my head around that is probably because I personally don't eat meat. Yeah. And ultimately, I suppose I feel a little bit like, and I'm sure, well, obviously Thich Nhat Hanh doesn't eat meat as well, so he's much wiser than I. Yeah. But that's the reason why people couldn't get their head around that, I suppose. Yeah.
And it's probably the hardest one. You have to...
I think maybe being a soldier might be the hardest one.
But a soldier will argue that it's for the greater humanity. They're saving their country. I mean,
100%.
Those people do not question right livelihood, which is interesting. I think...
Well, some people would describe that... That's another interesting thing, and you could definitely say the same about being a police officer.
Yeah.
To some people, that is the best livelihood. That is so respectful. And to some people, that is the worst. Yeah. You are basically evil.
Yeah.
And there's not a huge amount of difference between the two types of people who feel that way.
Well, and this is the thing with the...
They're often parents and children.
Yes, but this is the thing with the idea of a collective karma, which I really like. And it doesn't remove... Everyone should take individual responsibility for their own actions, for everything. Because, Thich Nhat Hanh points out, making bombs, you might not kill people, but if you create weaponry that goes to war, then that's not right livelihood. However, we live in a worldwide culture, where war is the norm. We do have wars, and I don't know who individually is going to stop that and how that stops. So yes, the way you stop having a part of it is to not take part in it and not to have that job. And if you can change that job, then do. But if you are in that job, like, I don't know how you compassionately make bombs, but the way you would do it is probably
be compassionate with the people that you work
exactly.
with. It's not necessarily about the job that you're doing then,
yeah,
is it? It's about the way that you handle yourself on a day-to-day basis around the other people that you work with.
And also knowing what you're doing, like knowing the seriousness of what you're doing and like taking it seriously,
and also probably appreciating slightly that if you didn't do it, someone else would do it.
Yeah,
if you quit, then that makes no difference.
Yeah, but at least you can act really kind to other people, like you say. You can do everything in your work day that acts with the Eightfold Path, that acts in right thinking and right speech and right action. Because like you say, if you don't, someone else will, and you don't know what someone else is going to do. You can only speak for yourself and know what you're going to do.
So I think that all fits in very nicely to the Brad Warner thing as well, which is like, it's not what you do, it's a matter of how you do what you do for a living. But I think there's another side to that, actually, which is like, ignore kind of what the job is, maybe. Like, we all go to work. Some, you don't like your job, maybe you like your job, whatever. But that also suggests something about yourself, the way that you turn up to a job.
What you bring.
And I think that's quite an interesting way of looking at it as well, because I suppose ultimately it's twofold. On the one hand, it's about, potentially, you could argue it's about turning up and sort of really being present and really putting all your effort into that job, no matter what it is, even if it's something that doesn't seem to have a huge amount of worth or whatever. But the reason for doing that isn't necessarily to help the company that you work for or whatever. It's because it will make your life better. That's how I would view it. So if you try and find some sort of meaning in your own work, no matter what it is, or you try and find some sort of joy in your own work, no matter what it is, and you put loads of effort into it. Yeah. There's that great film that we watched not too long ago. It's very recent. It really is recent, not like Yes Man and The Green Mile. But I can't remember what it's called. But it's a Japanese film about that guy that cleans toilets.
Oh my God, it was amazing. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it was.
No, I can't remember what it is either. But it's a very big film recently anyway. I'm sure if you Google Japanese man cleans toilets, you'll probably get something very dodgy. But put movie at the end and it'll probably be... No, don't put movie at the end. Put feature film. But that was, I think, fundamentally a Buddhist film. It certainly had. Maybe I just read it as a Buddhist film because of where I was at when I watched it.
I mean, it is Eastern, so it's probably
that's
Eastern
racist,
feelings
Siobhan,
about.
But yeah,
Eastern philosophy as opposed to Western.
Yeah. No, I would know 100%. Yeah. But this guy, he's just cleaning public toilets, and it's about a lot of that's about routine. I mean, there was a lot of reasons why I liked him and liked the film, but and
it's about finding meaning.
It's about finding meaning in the smallest of tasks, and I think that is mindfulness, right? Yeah. But again, it's not mindfulness so that it's not in order to do your job better, really. No. It's not in order to make you a better employee, but by being, well, it's arguable maybe, but I would say by being a better employee, by putting more of yourself into your job, you're going to get more out of it as well. It's kind of like anything else. And to some extent, it's about the need for a little bit of suffering in order to get joy, right? Yeah.
I think it's also about something you said when you were like, choosing what you're going to bring to work that day. I always think of, if you turn up stressed, you're going to stress other people out. That's going to turn into a stress cycle. And then lo and behold, your day is stressful. I literally did this the other day. I knew that I was worried about how I was going to function that day. And I was in charge of the hospital. And lo and behold, people started stressing me out. I was already stressed. So they didn't stress me out. I was already stressed. And it just went round and round and round. And I had my break with someone and she was like, why are you so stressy today? And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I actually put that on all of you. There was no need. Whereas actually there's something about what you bring totally determines what you're like that day. But also there's something about this trying to find meaning in everything. Actually, we can just go one step back and just experience things as it is, and then meaning comes. Like, if you look for meaning, then you're already on the back foot. So if you're already wanting your job to be meaningful, or you're looking for ways to have an impact, you kind of already jumped the gun and maybe setting yourself up to be disappointed or just, I don't know, you just already put an expectation on it that you can just go one step back, because the whole purpose of the meditation we do is to try not to cling or to avert from things that are difficult, or cling to the good things. It's about the just accepting in the moment what it is and going from there and putting your whole self into what's really there. I have to remind myself of this when I think I'm stressed, because actually what's happened is I think I'm stressed. I'm not actually stressed, but by thinking I'm stressed, I become stressed. Whereas if you actually take on a task as it is, you can probably do most anything. It's only your preconceptions of, oh, I'm not good at this, or I'm going to be stressed, or what will this look like in the future. It's like, no, just everything in its own space.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you could do pretty much any job with Right Livelihood if you just there and then do the best, most compassionate version of the thing. Because I do think the world's, we can't all be artists like Thich Nhat Hanh wants us to be.
No, I mean,
Not
not by a long shot. In fact, and I mean, there's an ability in doing jobs that maybe other people don't really want to do. Very much so, I think, and it's quite pompous as well if to just assume that everybody has the means, abilities, talents, or just like basically could even do a job which fits into a very, if you were going to be narrow about what good livelihood is. Yeah. Even in the context of like being a butcher, one of the first things that I thought about with butchery is, well, once it gets into, if you're doing it in some sort of industrialized way, then that's not good. But if you're doing it kindly and compassionately and you've got your own animals, then that's good. But that is just pompousness. That's class difference.
Yeah, it's true.
That's basically, most people can't run a little farm and bring their organically bring their animals up and be really kind to them and then kill them at some point once they get to the right time, but give them a good life. Most people can't do those sorts of jobs, don't have the opportunity to do those sorts of jobs. But the job that they might be able to get is they might be able to go and work in a slaughterhouse. Yeah. Well, that's horrible for them. Yeah. Obviously, I'm sure I was a funeral person for a while, so I know that you get used to things. You can get used to anything, but still, what does that do to somebody's psyche and soul? Yeah. But they're doing it for other people ultimately. It's like, again, to me, it's one of the worst jobs you could possibly do in every context, both sort of morally and literally. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, they're doing that for somebody else. If you're slaughtering animals that are going to end up in a McDonald's burger, that just seems to me to be the absolute antithesis of right livelihood. But if that's the only job you can get, and you've got 3 kids and whatever,
you've got to do it.
Yeah. So and
that you're doing it for those reasons. Like, I am bringing my kids up, I'm putting food on their table, I'm doing
which is very noble.
All that I can. Yeah, exactly. I think it's about binmen. I think it's about people that dig up the roads. You're doing the job that most people wouldn't want to do, and you're doing it as entirely as public service. There are some jobs where I think, is that public service? Do we need these things?
The bullshit jobs you're talking about.
The bullshit jobs. When I think of, I think art is lovely.
It's a bullshit job.
But I think it's a bullshit job. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting that that's the one Thich Nhat Hanh points out as like, this is right livelihood, art. And I'm like, no offense, but if everyone made art, then would art be art? Like, I don't know. Like, at a certain point.
If everyone made art, then art, the art wouldn't be art, would it? It would just be the thing that everyone does.
Yeah, and I know that's really, and that's pompous, because then when is art? Like, I don't even want to go down. Let's not even.
That's out of our scope.
That's a can of worms I don't want to open. But I do think that being an artist is also a very pompous, you rely on other people. It's not a public service that we need. Oh, I don't want to say that.
No, I think we need art.
We need some art, but I just think.
But
I don't know. I just say, oh gosh, who gets to? Then we get into gatekeeping. Who gets to be artists? Who doesn't? It's. I don't know. But I just think it's interesting that I actually think that you could probably achieve right livelihood more in some of those jobs that do not necessarily appear right livelihood.
Yeah. I suppose there's one other way of looking at this as well, which is about in the context of like how you do what you're doing for a living, and that is an idea that I'd never really thought of before until quite recently, because I heard somebody talking about it, and that's about whilst on the one hand, obviously doing it to the best of your abilities, on the other hand, it's about leaving yourself enough energy and potentially time and space to be able to do other things.
Yeah.
So there's this guy, he's another Christian, I'm afraid, Mark John Comer, who wrote a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which I think is a lovely term. It's part of the reason why I bring it up. But I mean, it's more or less about slowing your life down so that you have space enough in order to work on yourself spiritually.
Yeah.
And I think that, obviously, again, there's like practicalities behind that, and it's quite a pompous idea to say, like, the ideal version of that would probably be something like, just work 3 days a week, guys, and then spend the rest of your time. But obviously not most people can't do that. So it's not necessarily about that, but it's about trying to not give so much of yourself to your employer that you have nothing left at the end of the day, and B, just kind of like eking out a small space where you can say, okay, I'm going to do something important for myself, I suppose.
Yeah, that's not just work related.
I think that is about a style of work.
Well, that's why some of the lovely Scandi countries have changed to like 3 and 4 day weeks.
Yeah.
Where there's some countries that have not just consolidated hours into that time, but they're paying their workers for a 37.5-hour week when they're only working 30.
Yeah.
And they're still getting the same amount of work done.
And that would be ideal.
I mean,
I don't know if that's what's going to happen in Britain.
No. It's definitely not going to happen.
Our attitude is very different to the Scandinavian attitude.
But that's more of that's an attitude where it is based around that. It's about having time for leisure. They're maybe not wording it as spirituality, but it's definitely about looking after yourself to because, you know, if you look after yourself, you'll do better at work. Like from the, capitalist corporate boss's point of view. Well,
so this brings me on to one last point that I have. Well, actually, I've got two really, because one thing that I saw a podcast, I think it was, with a Buddhist monk who was talking about mindfulness practice, and he was just a sort of generalized, quite I think relatively famous Buddhist monk but one of the biggest things he does is he provides mindful practice to sort of massive corporations,
which is a big thing now.
And it was interesting because I think that of course it's a big thing, and he more or less said that they pay him good money. I didn't say it in these words, I'm being a bit cynical. They pay him good money to go and help all of the workers sort of relax and chill out. Now, I'm making a lot of assumptions about what these companies are, but most major corporations have an awful lot of moral problems with them, if not all. And I suppose I question that, that, and it's almost no one's, I suppose that's his livelihood, but I'm not really questioning him. But it's like, in that context, if you were to come from a really true place as a Buddhist monk, what you would be doing is trying to make those people realize all of the bad things they're doing to the world, potentially, or all of the selfishness or all of the greed that's going on within their office, not just helping them to feel more relaxed about doing all of the bad shit that they're doing. And I am making a lot of assumptions about what these corporations are doing, but I mean, for the most part, I don't think it's outrageous to suggest that the vast majority of people working in those types of jobs probably aren't doing something which is fulfilling the world in a positive way.
And also, my main bugbear with mindfulness at work is this just a way to firm up people so that the corporation can carry on putting stress upon them, as opposed to you finding a way to turn up to work and not get stressed out. They're two slightly different things. One is we've paid for this mindfulness training so that we can actually put more shit.
We've brought in a famous monk.
Who also, right livelihood questionable. Whereas actually learning mindfulness so you can turn up to your job and step away from it is useful. I think I just judge when a corporation buys in the monk to do it.
No, 100%. No,
whereas if you can turn up with an attitude of this does not, I don't need to let this stress me the hell out, then that's useful. That's good. But corporations buying in monks to tell them to chill out, it sucks.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Good. My last point, Thich Nhat Hanh mentions reminding about embodying the Eightfold Path at work and saying that right livelihood is how we act at work, but it's also how we act at work will affect our consciousness as a whole. So, for better or worse, we do spend an awful lot of our waking hours at work, and we can do all this lovely work on ourselves outside of work, we can have a really nice life. But if we treat people poorly at work, whatever job we do, and this is not about these jobs specifically, but it is the how, like Brad Warner says, that is going to eke into our consciousness outside of work. So it works both ways. I've said work a lot, work, but it's a cycle that works in both directions. And so even if you do a job, like you say, that you don't enjoy or maybe has some questionable morals, if you can do it in a way that you can sit with yourself about, you can have good impacts on people, then it carries over into your normal life as well. So it's worth doing. It's worth looking after yourself outside of work, but it is worth, like you say, there's something about putting correct effort in and getting something out of it, but it's also knowing that however you act at work is most of your person as well. You're asleep for a third of the day, you're at work a third of the day, and actually probably a heavier third than that, and then you're outside of it for a bit of that time. So actually how you present at work isn't just your work self, it's quite a huge part of yourself. So treat people kindly in your job and it'll affect your consciousness. I've said affect, but he said if you're horrible at work, it infects your consciousness. So maybe think of it that way.
That's nice.
Everything you do that's nasty at your job, that actually is infecting you as a person.
Well, everything you do that's nasty full stop is an infection, isn't it? But that's a whole other point. I just wanted to finish off very quickly by talking about self-employment and being employed by somebody else. Partly because last week, Sham City Roasters, which is my coffee roasting company, in case nobody knows, celebrated, I don't know if that's quite the correct word to use, our 10 years in business. A 10-year
birthday.
A decade of Sham City Roasters. And so to celebrate, I didn't tell anybody and I just shut it. And Sham City Roasters no longer exists.
Oh, have you actually done it?
I have done it.
I've known it was on the cards. I didn't know it happened.
So the shop is still open online. If you want any merch, there's a little bit left. And it's very cheap. So you're very welcome to go to shamcityroasters.com. Actually, I've got rid of the .com as well. Go to Etsy and put Sham City Roasters in, and I'll come up. But you certainly don't have to.
But the coffee's done.
But the coffee's finished with, and the company is dead. And now, in fairness, most people listening, even if you were once aware of it, probably thought it had gone out of business a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally, we did in a sort of fairly major way. But just to give you, and this will get to something, I think, a vague picture. I started it as an internet company selling just coffee online, and then I was living in London then, and I started doing lots and lots of markets, and that was kind of my business model. And then we got the opportunity to open a cafe in Hastings, which, if anybody listening knows us or has any idea of who we are, you probably know us through that cafe. The cafe went for 4 years up until the start of COVID, when we lost the space. We've talked about this on the podcast before, way back actually on the first ever episode of Breakfast Punk.
Oh, that's why we did it.
We did actually talk about this.
Yeah.
I have no idea what we said, but well, feel free to go back if you'd like. It's
don't.
by far the most listened to episode we've ever had. I mean, there's thousands of listens. Anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyhow, so the cafe went out of business or stopped operating, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I started selling online again. And now this was during the heady times of kind of post-COVID, well, COVID and post-COVID and lockdowns, and everyone was buying things online. So I made a really nice little business out of it for a couple of years, and then slowly but surely it started to diminish a little bit. And now, as anybody who listens to this podcast know, I now have a job, but I've just been continuing to go along with it. I gave up social media, which meant that I completely stopped advertising it, really, but I had a bunch of customers that were just coming back and back, so that helped. And then also Etsy, which is a way that people just find things. So if you typed, I'd been doing it a long time, I had good reviews, all those things. So therefore, if you typed in coffee to Etsy, I was probably the first hit you got, or whatever. So anyway, so it eked itself out as a little business going on. But anyway, I've decided to close it. That's not really the point that I'm trying to make in this context. But that was half going to be my... That's a weird thing to say. I mean, that was going to be my thing. That was my backup. I referred to it earlier at the start of the thing. Because I'm really happy about it.
Yeah,
I'm really proud. I'm really proud. Well, no, I don't think I believe in closure, if I'm honest. Okay. I'm really proud of doing it. And it's much more dramatic to talk about the cafe than it is to talk about the rest of it, because the rest of it was just sort of me beavering away. But in fairness, for a couple of years there, a good few years, I made a living. It's insane. I made a living from roasting coffee and sending it to people in the post.
But also, I saw the beginning of that.
Yeah.
And just to go back to the pride thing and being proud, like, the cafe was one thing. Super proud of you for doing that. And that was a more obvious, I don't do anything but this now. But when I met you, we worked together for 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. But I saw you leave nursing to roast coffee in your room in a tiny flat in Bromley. Like, I just remember seeing the absolute beginnings of that. And it is a huge thing a huge jump, a huge leap to have done. You change your entire life to do that. So yeah, the cafe might feel more dramatic, and yes, you then made your living out of selling it online, and it was definitely probably much more profitable post COVID and post the cafe. But I remember probably the proudest bit for me is those first couple of years beavering away in London.
Yeah,
it was about 1.5 years of doing that.
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, it was. I made a lot of preparations for it, but it was quite a big risk. But
huge risk. And just seeing all of the creative stuff in the beginnings of that, it was making literal magic, making something out of absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and it worked, and which is insane.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up in this context is partly just to say it out loud. But also we both were. I started the cafe and did it on my own for 18 months, and then you came on board and you were there for the rest of the time, and so it was our thing, and. One of the things that you got an awful lot, you can probably imagine, working in a coffee shop in a kind of fairly cool bit of Hastings by the Sea, was a lot of people really cool dudes, was that a lot of people would come in and say, God, you're living the dream. Oh, you're so lucky. This is what... And if you think about it, and this is exactly what happened to me, by the way, so I'm sort of transferring this onto everyone else, but I think it's sort of true. It's one of those jobs that when you're on holiday and you find a little cafe... that you go to every day because you're on holiday and you're feeling really free and you're feeling really happy, and you think to yourself, God, wouldn't it be amazing? It would be like being on holiday all the time running
that
this.
Looks so nice, just doing your own thing.
Yeah, and let me be clear, it was amazing. I loved it, but it was the hardest work I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah.
And it was 4 years which, whilst running that thing, I will never not be proud of, and I'll never not be happy of having done. It was the worst possible thing that we could have done for our relationship. It was the worst possible thing I could have done for my mental health. It was the worst possible thing I could have done for my physical health. Everything about it almost ruined us.
Yeah.
In every respect apart from finances, pretty much.
And isn't it interesting, because technically that would have been right livelihood. We didn't sell alcohol.
That's my point.
We were vegetarian,
a vegan.
And just with the 5 precepts, and we didn't encourage anyone to break them. So the 2 criteria
we were very kind
give,
to everybody. We were very welcoming. We were. It was a really, it was a lovely place. And I'm saying this. I've got a bit of a big head about this, but we created a lovely atmosphere, and anyone that came knows that we did that. Yeah,
100%. We had a little culture that was in our cafe. Yeah, no, technically it's right livelihood, but it.
And it was, and again, let's be clear. I mean, it was right livelihood, but the point, I suppose, and again, when it came to an end, and I'm sure we talked about this aeons ago on when we discussed it on the podcast, but
back in 2021.
Oh Jesus, yeah. But losing the cafe, at no point was I glad that we'd lost it, and at no point was I equally really sad that we lost it. It's like it just finished in a way that I had not planned. If as I had in my head, we'd still be running it now.
Yeah.
Until we, forever. Basically, that was our plan.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just going to do that. But having been sucked out of that reality by something which had nothing to do with us, there was nothing we could have done about it whatsoever, really, unless we were extraordinarily rich and we could have just paid rent on somewhere that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But if we'd had all the money in the world, then we'd probably still be operational, but we didn't. And one of the reasons why we didn't have all the money in the world was because, again, right livelihood, we were very affordable, purposefully affordable, which means that we didn't make as much profit as probably, if I'd known a pandemic was coming, I would have probably added a couple of quid onto everything.
Yeah, true.
And we might have survived it. But
and
anyway.
We couldn't employ, we had someone who worked for us, cash in hand, tax man, look away, sporadic hours, but we couldn't actually afford to employ anyone. So therefore, we were the ones there doing absolutely everything every single day.
Yeah. Which, and again, I wouldn't change any of that for the world. But
No.
the point I'm trying to make, I suppose, is that it's this job that it's just an ideal. Yeah, it's an ideal example of what right livelihood sort of is, but also isn't. You know, we definitely didn't have any space for spiritual growth.
We didn't even have
We
space
didn't have
to be
space
nice to each other.
Yeah, we didn't have. You know, we didn't have any space to do any of the things. And actually, once we lost the cafe,
We then got that space.
we got that space, and that has actually been the journey.
Yeah.
Which brought us to today,
To
where I think, you know, everything is infinitely better, and that doesn't make me regret doing the cafe. It's, you know, it's a weird grey thing. I'm so happy that we did it. I'm so proud of it. I'm so chuffed, and I'm so proud that the company lasted a decade too. I mean, it fizzled out, and that's fine. That is what it is. I don't really care about that, but I wouldn't change anything about it. But yet, I probably would change everything about it.
Yeah.
You know, if I could, you know, it's the toss up between whether you do the thing that everybody looks at and thinks, God, you're living the dream, or whether you actually live the dream. Because actually living the dream is working 3 days a week in a bookshop.
Yeah.
You know, taking running seriously, going into the woods and praying. Like that's actually what living the dream is.
Yeah.
But it's not. But no one knows. No one. I know we're talking about it on a podcast, but no one knows those things. No one knows what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, and that's fine. Nor would it be interesting if anybody did know. But living the dream and actually living the dream are two very different things. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
True, and I think living the dream is only doing that if you know you're living the dream. So I think it's about being thoughtful at the time. So when the cafe closed, or before the cafe closed, when COVID hit, we talked a lot. It was the beginning of, you know, we said, right, say what's on your mind whenever it comes up. And nothing's right or wrong, and we don't make a decision until we both think we're ready to make decisions. So we didn't close the cafe. We closed it early in the pandemic, but we were having those conversations.
Not according to
earlier.
my bank balance, we didn't. But yeah,
no. But by the time we made the decision, we didn't tell anyone for a month because we were like, we've made this decision, but let's keep talking about it until it's the right time to announce it. And it's about that constant reflection. Again, you only know that you're doing the right thing if you know you're doing the right thing. If you can sit there and reflect on it and think and appreciate the moment.
Well, yeah, and maybe
and that was a big lesson in doing that. The closing of that cafe made me realise the importance of. It took ages to enact it, and I still have to work on it. But that importance of thinking about what you're thinking, reflecting, talking, communicating, all of that. It was a big lesson in that.
Yeah. And I think you go from being people that look as if you're having the best life to people that are actually having the best life, but no one notices.
Yeah.
And I think that's much more important. Because again, I mean, if you followed our Instagram page, you probably were thinking, God, look at these guys, so much fun. I mean, it wasn't that. I don't mean we were the coolest or anything, but, you know, yeah, if you were trudging to a job that you hated and you saw us farting about in a kitchen.
Oh, look what cakes we got!
You know,
my gosh.
and that was true. That was part of it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that was our life, but equally, it was much more complicated than that.
Yeah, exactly. As is everything, and again, the lesson in not judging other people as well.
Indeed, and in that context, I've over the weeks taken increasing umbrage to the idea of anything being right in quite this way, outside of the really big things.
True.
You know, like there's definitely right behaviour when it comes to those 5 precepts, like not murdering. There's no question there's a right and wrong. I'm not questioning that. I'm not being Foucault. But you know, there's it's about yourself, isn't it? It's about sort of squaring it with yourself.
Yeah.
Squaring it with whatever it is that you need to be squared with. Yeah. In order to make your life comfortable and happy, and you don't feel like, oh my God, I can't believe every day I go to work and butcher animals. Yeah. You know? Yeah. If you're happy with that, that's fine. Well, it's not fine, but you know, it is what it is.
This is how your morals are your own to some level.
God, there you go. You're allowed your own morals, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from the horse's mouth. Siobhan, the queen of the world, is allowing you all to have your own morals.
But there is something about like, God, we have so much to work on in our own worlds. We don't need to look to other people's all that often. Just. I'm going to go on. I'm not going to start that ramble. But
don't judge, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't judge. Just look at yourself. Be happy with yourself. Write Livelihood.
And forgiveness is very important. I'm just going to say that I feel like on every episode we need to throw that in.
Yeah.
So we're going to finish now. That was quite long. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster. I hope you've taken the ride with us. The SoBet Punks.
Spiritual roller coaster.
If you would like to contact us, the email is shamcityroasters@gmail.com. Please do. If anybody wants to talk about prayer, come at me.
Dave's really, really up for talking about prayer at the minute.
And that would be great. This podcast comes. Sorry, my brain went off then for a second.
Anyone?
This podcast comes out every 2 weeks, like clockwork. Every other Thursday. We don't tell anybody about it on social media. A little bit like my business, which is why it's gone out of business. So don't let this podcast go out of business. You just have to tell your friends if you want, or don't. Just listen to it and enjoy it, and we love you for it. And thank you, and goodbye.